Moana Mackie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Labor unfortunately will not be supporting this piece of legislation, and it really is unfortunate because I think this was a lost opportunity. I think that whilst before the bill went to select committee, there was a lot of consternation around the very principle of what we were doing, the fact that it was quite different from what the advisory committee that had been set up under the Labor government with our agreement with the Honourable Peter Dunn and United Future had suggested. Actually, when we got to select committee, what we found was there was an awful lot of common ground, a real desire to do something about those tensions that exist between the protection of the conservation estate, pest management and the interests of recreational hunters. That there was general agreement that in many cases those interests actually aligned where people might think that they conflicted, and a real opportunity to do something which would build on the relationships that already existed, highlight where relationships did not exist, and provide an opportunity to start building those relationships. Because what we found out through the select committee process and the submissions was that around the country this was already happening in some places very, very well, where Department of Conservation was working extremely well with local recreational hunting interests. Decisions have been made and relationships put in place that meant that we were getting what the select committee wanted, which was a win-win for both sides. But equally, there were other parts of the country where that relationship was very bad, where the relationships had broken down and where DOC and the local hunting interests were not working well together. And what was clear was that it would have been perfectly possible within existing laws to actually build on both those experiences, of the very bad experiences and the very positive experiences, and come up with something which I think most parties, or if not all parties in the House, would have been able to support. And certainly if you read the regulatory impact statement on this piece of legislation, and if you read the advice that came from both Treasury and the Department of Conservation, this was their least favoured option. This was the option that they thought would have the highest regulatory burden and the most cost. They said standalone legislation wasn't the way to go when under existing legislation you could achieve exactly the same outcomes. So what the Minister of Conservation is currently already able to do under the Wild Animal Control Act is to set up committees of special interest. So we could have taken that route, but we certainly took on board the concerns by the recreational hunting community that the problem with that was as easily as a minister could establish one of these boards, the minister could then disestablish it. And we accepted that this was something that needed to be far more permanent than that. But the other option that was available, I guess the middle, we would see it as the middle ground option, was that under the Wild Animal Control Act there could have been an amendment which could have put this committee into place, could have given it the kind of functions that this bill seeks to impart on the Game Animal Council, but in doing so not undermining the role of the Department of Conservation and the Minister of Conservation. And I very much appreciate that the lofty goal of devolution of a number of these functions from the Department of Conservation down to other groups where we can get a win-win for everyone involved, but I simply just don't think we're there yet. And I think that the member who is effectively responsible for this bill, which is the Honourable Peter Dunn, he made a very correct statement in his second reading speech, which was that the recreational hunting community is not very well organised at the moment, and this bill does seek to address that, but it's a bit of a chicken and an egg thing, which is we're passing on an awful lot of responsibility and devolving responsibility to a sector that has yet, I think, to develop to a point where we can be confident that, especially in terms of pest management, and that's incredibly important for all New Zealanders, not just for those who care about the Department of Conservation estate, that the standards there are going to continue to be met. And one of the concerns, of course, that was raised by the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment was around the issue of 1080 and ensuring that the Game Animal Council was not able to stop the use of 1080, for example, where it's being used for pest control, simply because it might also impact on one of the herds of national significance. So it's disappointing. I'm very pleased that there is a 3-year review in this bill, so I think that's an important part that does allay some concern, which is in 3 years' time we can see where we're at and see whether this is still the appropriate vehicle to address the very real issues which are being addressed in this bill around managing those tensions between the Department of Conservation, pest management and the rights of recreational hunters. And I keep saying recreational hunters because up until a few hours ago we were really only talking about recreational hunters. And a major concern for us has been the vote that was taken in the committee stage of this bill today to remove the word recreational wherever it appears in the bill. That is a very big shift from what we were discussing at Select Committee. That very much changes the entire flavour of what we're trying to do here. There is a difference, we believe, between the recreational hunting interests. You know, the people who go out, they've done it their whole lives, they've learnt from their granddad, from their dad, maybe from their grandmother and their mother as well, that hunting is a real part of the culture, a real part of that community, and the people who go out and make a lot of money out of it shooting animals out of helicopters. Now, for us, you know, that was an important distinction. We were doing something which was going to benefit that recreational hunting community because we recognised that many of them do it also out of a love of the land, do it also out of a love of just getting out there amongst nature. They had no interest beyond just enjoying what they've always done and wanting to see that when the Department of Conservation is engaging on pest management plans, that they're not at the same time eradicating the species that they enjoy going out and hunting, that they can get some kind of species management in there that allows both to coexist. So that's what we wanted, and those were the people we wanted to benefit from that. But unfortunately, we now include a category of people who are benefiting from what we're doing here, who also make money off what they do, and who are more the big end of town, I guess, when it comes to the hunting sector, than the people that we believed we were dealing with primarily at Select Committee. And I know that in trying to explain why that Clause 16 was changed, we were told that it was to be more inclusive, to extend the benefits of this beyond just recreational hunters, but that wasn't the mandate we were given at Select Committee, and that wasn't, you know, the overarching framework of what we were told we were doing. What we were told we were doing was dealing with the everyday hunters who go out there and do it because they love it, it's part of their lifestyle, they're doing it because they love being out amongst nature, not because they're making money out of it, or, you know, having tourists come in and do trophy hunting. So now this bill extends to all those people, and I think that's a real shame, because whereas everything I said before about how close I thought we were to actually getting something that everyone could get on board with, that's undermined by actually, and what it also does is it removes any mention of recreational hunters from the legislation. So had this gone to Select Committee, and I don't know why this wasn't raised at Select Committee, but except I acknowledge Select Committee was about 400 years ago, but that's all right. Had this been raised at Select Committee, we could have discussed, for example, mentioning recreational hunters, including recreational hunters, to ensure that the interests of recreational hunters, which were the people that we believed that we were passing this legislation for, will not be lost. Will not be lost against the bigger, more wealthy voice of other hunting interests, who officials, when we were going through this, it was made quite clear to us that this bill wasn't being passed for them. It was being passed for the recreational hunters. So to come to committee stage and suddenly have all reference to recreational hunters removed from the bill was unexpected, to say the least, and unfortunate, I think. And it may be in 3 years' time that I'm sure other members will get up and say it'll make no difference, and it may be in 3 years' time when we do the review that that's the case. But it should have gone to Select Committee so we could have actually teased that out rather than under urgency. And I appreciate there are timeframes that need to be passed so that we can so that we don't breach them, but then why wasn't this bill progressed earlier? Why wasn't this bill progressed earlier in the year so we didn't have to do it under urgency, and we didn't have to have an SOP dropped on us at the last minute when we really don't fully appreciate exactly what it might do? So we will not be supporting this bill. It's a shame, because I do think we were very close to finding something workable that everyone could get on board with, but I do congratulate the Honourable Peter Dunn for the time and effort he's put into passing this piece of legislation over it must be coming up to nearly a decade now, a long period of time. So I do acknowledge that this is I'm sure a very happy day for the Honourable Peter Dunn. I'm just sorry we couldn't get on board with it.
The Honourable Peter Dunn.